Chapter 1 Dawn of a Nation. A long time ago, in a far corner of the world, there was a group of islands surrounded by the sea. These islands would one day be called Japan. At first, they were quiet and untouched. Mountains rose high, rivers flowed swiftly, and forests stretched as far as the eye could see. The wind carried the whispers of something greater, stories waiting to unfold. The people of these islands believed that gods lived everywhere, in the mountains, in the trees, even in the water. They called these gods kami. To honor them, people built simple wooden shrines. These were sacred places where they prayed and made offerings. They believed the kami watched over their land and kept it safe. The world around them felt alive, full of wonder and power. One day, the people began to tell a story about the sun goddess, Amaterasu. She was the most important of all the kami. They said she brought light to the world. Without her, there would be only darkness. Her story inspired hope and gave meaning to their lives. They believed she was the ancestor of their leaders. This was how the legend of Japan's first emperor began. According to the story, a man named Jimmu was chosen by the gods. He was brave and wise, with a heart full of courage. The gods told him to lead the people and bring them together. They gave him a special task: to create a nation blessed by the sun goddess. Jimmu did not hesitate. He knew this was his destiny. Jimmu's journey was not easy. He traveled across the islands, facing dangers along the way. There were wild animals and storms that threatened to stop him. The forests were thick, and the rivers were wide. But Jimmu never gave up. He believed the gods were guiding him. Each step brought him closer to his goal. When Jimmu finally reached the land where he would build his new kingdom, he stood on a hill and looked around. The land was green and fertile, the perfect place for his people to live and grow. He raised his hands to the sky and gave thanks to the sun goddess. Then, with determination, he began his work. The people followed Jimmu. They trusted him and believed in his vision. Together, they built homes and planted crops. They learned how to use the land to their advantage. Slowly, their small villages grew into something more. A community was born, and with it, a sense of unity and purpose. As the years passed, the people continued to tell stories about Jimmu and the gods. These stories became part of their history. They were shared from one generation to the next, keeping the memory of those early days alive. The land they built together became the foundation of Japan. The people also grew closer to nature. They believed the kami were always watching, so they treated the land with respect. They celebrated the seasons, held festivals, and made offerings at the shrines. Each act connected them to the gods and to each other. Life was simple, but it was full of meaning. In time, the wooden shrines became more beautiful. The people used their skills to carve intricate designs and paint the wood in bright colors. They added gates, called torii, to mark the entrance to these sacred places. When someone passed through a torii, they left the everyday world behind and stepped into a space of peace and holiness. These shrines became symbols of their faith and connection to the kami. But the people also knew that life was not always easy. Sometimes the weather was harsh. Storms would sweep through the villages, destroying homes and crops. Earthquakes shook the ground beneath their feet. When these things happened, they turned to the kami for help. They prayed for strength and for better days to come. Their faith kept them strong. As their society grew, so did their culture. They began to create beautiful art and music. They made pottery with delicate patterns and learned to weave cloth. They wrote poems about the beauty of the world around them. These creations reflected their love for nature and their deep respect for the gods. One of their most important traditions was the passing down of knowledge. The elders taught the young how to farm, fish, and build. They shared stories about the past, teaching them to honor their ancestors. Each generation added something new, but they never forgot where they came from. Years turned into centuries, and the people of Japan continued to grow and change. They faced challenges, but they also achieved great things. The small villages became towns, and the towns became cities. The spirit of Jimmu, their first emperor, lived on in their hearts. His courage and vision were the roots of their nation. Even today, the legacy of those early days remains. The stories of the sun goddess, the kami, and Jimmu are still told. The shrines still stand, welcoming those who seek peace and connection. The people of Japan continue to honor their past while looking toward the future. The land of the rising sun is more than a name. It is a promise, a reminder of where it all began. From the simple shrines in the forest to the vibrant cities of today, Japan's journey is one of hope, resilience, and faith. It all started with the belief in something greater, a belief that continues to inspire people around the world. As the sun sets on this chapter of the story, imagine the light that first shone on those islands so long ago. Imagine the people who lived there, working together to build something new. Their dreams, their struggles, and their faith are still alive, carried forward by every new generation. Chapter 2: The Sword and the Brush. Long ago, in a time of castles and battles, a new kind of warrior arose in Japan. These warriors were called samurai. They were brave, skilled, and loyal. Their lives were not easy, but they were filled with purpose. The samurai followed a strict code of honor. This code guided their actions and shaped their world. The samurai believed in loyalty. They served their lords without question. A samurai's duty was to protect and fight for their master, even if it meant giving their life. They also valued courage. Fear could not control them. Even in the face of danger, a true samurai stood firm. Their code of honor was called Bushido, which means the way of the warrior. Bushido was more than rules. It was a way of life. It taught the samurai to be honest, fair, and respectful. They were strong, but they were not cruel. Strength without kindness was seen as weakness. The samurai were known for their weapons. The sword, or katana, was their most prized possession. It was not just a tool for battle. It was a symbol of their spirit. The katana was sharp and deadly, but it was also beautiful. Each sword was made with great care. Skilled craftsmen folded and hammered the metal many times, creating a blade that was both strong and flexible. A samurai treated their sword with respect. It was kept clean and sharp, ready for use at any moment. Before battle, a samurai would bow to their weapon, showing gratitude and reverence. The katana was not just an object, it was a part of who they were. Training to become a samurai was hard. Young boys began their lessons early. They learned to fight with swords, bows, and spears. They practiced riding horses and studied strategy. Every movement had to be perfect. Mistakes could mean death in battle. But training was not only about fighting. Samurai were also taught discipline. They had to control their emotions and stay calm under pressure. Though the samurai were warriors, their lives were not only about war. They believed in balance. To balance their strength, they turned to art and poetry. Many samurai were skilled calligraphers. They practiced writing with brushes and ink. Their strokes were steady and graceful, like their movements in battle. Samurai also wrote poetry. They often composed haiku, a short form of poetry that captures the beauty of a single moment. These poems spoke of nature, life, and death. A samurai could write about the stillness of a pond, the sound of wind in the trees, or the fleeting beauty of cherry blossoms. The words were simple, but filled with meaning. Cherry blossoms, or sakura, were special to the samurai. The flowers bloom for only a short time before falling to the ground. To the samurai, this was a symbol of life. It reminded them that life is short and precious. It also reflected their belief in dying with honor, like a cherry blossom falling at its peak. The samurai's love of art did not end with poetry. They also appreciated music, tea ceremonies, and theater. The tea ceremony, called chanoyu, was a way to find peace and focus. Every movement in the ceremony was precise, from pouring the water to stirring the tea. It was a time to reflect and find balance. The samurai's devotion to both the sword and the brush created a unique culture. They showed that strength and beauty could exist together. A warrior could fight bravely on the battlefield and then write a poem about the stars. This balance made the samurai more than just fighters. It made them symbols of discipline and grace. But the life of a samurai was not without sorrow. Battles were dangerous, and many samurai did not survive. They faced hard choices. Sometimes, loyalty to their master meant going against their own desires. If a samurai failed in their duty, it brought great shame. To restore their honor, they might choose to end their own life in a ritual called seppuku. This act was both tragic and courageous, showing the deep commitment of the samurai to their code. As the years passed, the role of the samurai changed. New weapons like guns were introduced, and battles were no longer fought with swords. Samurai found themselves in a world that no longer needed them in the same way. Many struggled to find their place. Still, the spirit of the samurai lived on. Their values, honor, courage, and loyalty remained a part of Japanese culture. Their art, poetry, and stories continued to inspire people. Even today, the samurai are remembered as symbols of strength and beauty. Imagine a young samurai sitting beneath a cherry tree. His sword rests by his side, gleaming in the sunlight. In his hands, he holds a brush and paper. The petals of the cherry blossoms fall around him as he writes a haiku. The moment is quiet, but it holds the essence of his life. A life dedicated to both the sword and the brush. The world of the samurai was full of contrasts. It was a world of battle and peace, strength and grace, life and death. Through it all, the samurai lived with purpose, following their code and seeking balance. Their legacy reminds us that even in times of struggle, there can be beauty. And even in moments of peace, there is strength. As you hear the echoes of their swords and the soft strokes of their brushes, imagine the samurai's journey, a journey of honor, loyalty, and art, a journey that continues to inspire hearts around the world. Chapter 3. A Closed Door. A long time ago, Japan made a surprising decision. The country closed its doors to the outside world. For over 200 years, no one could enter or leave freely. This time was known as the Edo period, named after the city of Edo, now called Tokyo. It was a time of peace, but also isolation. The story begins in the early 1600s. Before this, Japan had faced years of war and chaos. Powerful lords, called daimyo, fought for control. Their armies battled across the land, bringing destruction and fear. Then, a leader named Tokugawa Ieyasu brought order. He became the shogun, the ruler of Japan. Under his rule, the Tokugawa shogunate was born, and the country began to settle. But peace brought new problems. Foreign traders arrived in Japan with ships full of goods. They brought silk, spices, and silver. They also brought something else: new ideas. Missionaries from Europe spoke about a different religion, Christianity. At first, the Japanese people were curious. Some converted, and churches were built. But as the new faith spread, tensions grew. The shogun worried about the foreign influence. He feared it could weaken his power. What if the daimyo used foreign guns to rebel? What if people turned against their own traditions? The questions were too dangerous to ignore. Tokugawa leaders decided to act. They closed Japan to the world. In 1639, strict laws were passed. Foreigners were banned, except for a small group of Dutch traders. These traders lived on a tiny artificial island called Dejima, near Nagasaki. They could not leave the island. Even their goods were carefully inspected. No foreign books or ideas could enter Japan without permission. For the Japanese people, leaving the country became illegal. If someone tried to escape, they faced death. Japan had truly shut itself away. At first, life felt different. The bustling ports became quiet. The sound of foreign ships faded. But inside Japan, a new kind of life began to take shape. Without wars or outside distractions, people focused on their work. Farmers grew rice, the country's most important crop. Merchants traded goods in the markets. Craftsmen made beautiful items like pottery, swords, and fabrics. Society became stable. Samurai, however, faced a challenge. They were warriors, trained for battle. But in a time of peace, there were no wars to fight. Many samurai became administrators or teachers. Some struggled to find purpose. They still carried their swords, but their role in society was changing. In the countryside, farmers worked hard. They grew rice in flooded fields, often under the hot sun. Their lives were simple but difficult. They paid heavy taxes to the daimyo and the shogun. Still, they found joy in festivals and the changing seasons. In the spring, they watched cherry blossoms bloom. In the autumn, they celebrated the harvest. Merchants in the cities grew rich during this time. They traded silk, tea, and sake. They also helped spread a new culture. Kabuki theater became popular with its bright costumes and dramatic performances. Woodblock prints, called ukiyo-e, showed beautiful landscapes, famous actors, and scenes of daily life. These prints were colorful and full of detail. People of all classes enjoyed them. Even though Japan was closed, it was not completely cut off. The Dutch on Dejima brought news of the outside world. They shared information about science, medicine, and technology. Japanese scholars translated Dutch books and studied these new ideas. This became known as Rangaku, or Dutch learning. It was like a small window to the outside world, even while the door remained shut. But life in isolation was not perfect. The strict rules of the Tokugawa shogunate controlled every part of society. People were divided into classes: samurai, farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. Movement between classes was almost impossible. If someone broke the rules, they faced harsh punishments. Natural disasters also brought hardship. Earthquakes, typhoons, and famines struck the land. In some years, crops failed and people went hungry. Villages were filled with sadness. These struggles tested the strength of the Japanese people. As time passed, whispers of change began to spread. By the 1800s, foreign ships started appearing again. Some came for trade, others for exploration. The sight of these ships caused fear and curiosity. What did the foreigners want? Would they bring trouble or opportunity? In 1853, a dramatic event shook Japan. American ships, led by Commodore Matthew Perry, arrived in Edo Bay. These black ships, as the Japanese called them, were large and powerful. Perry brought a letter from the U.S. President asking Japan to open its doors for trade. The shogunate faced a difficult decision. Should they agree, or should they resist? The arrival of Perry's ships marked the beginning of the end for Japan's isolation. After much debate, Japan signed a treaty with the United States in 1854. Other countries soon followed. The closed door was finally opening after more than 2 centuries. The years of isolation had shaped Japan in many ways. The country had enjoyed peace and stability. Its culture had flourished, creating art, theater, and traditions that remain famous today. But isolation also came at a cost. Japan had fallen behind in technology and industry. It now faced a world that was far more advanced. The reopening of Japan was both exciting and challenging. The people were curious about the new ideas and inventions from abroad, but they also worried about losing their identity. How could they move forward while holding on to their traditions? This question would shape Japan's future. Looking back, the Edo period was a unique chapter in Japan's history. It was a time of quiet growth and cultural richness. The farmers, merchants, craftsmen, and samurai all played their parts. Together, they built a society that balanced tradition and innovation. As the door to the world opened, Japan stood at a crossroads. The journey ahead was uncertain, but the spirit of its people, strong, resourceful, and proud, would guide them through the challenges to come. Chapter 4. The Black Ships Arrive. The year was 1853. On a quiet summer morning, something strange appeared on the horizon near Edo Bay. Large ships, black with smoke, moved slowly toward Japan's shores. These were not the wooden ships the Japanese were used to seeing. They were different. They were powerful. People stood on the beaches, staring in silence. What were these ships? Who had sent them? And what did they want? The ships belonged to the United States. Their commander was Commodore Matthew Perry, a determined man with a mission. He carried a letter from the U.S. President. The letter demanded that Japan open its ports to trade. For over 200 years, Japan had closed itself to the world. Foreigners were not welcome. But now, things were about to change. Perry's ships were unlike anything the Japanese had seen before. They ran on steam, not sails. Their cannons were huge, their flags unfamiliar. The people called them kurofune, or black ships, because of the dark smoke that poured from their funnels. To many, they looked like monsters. Rumors spread quickly. Some said the ships could spit fire. Others believed they carried foreign gods. Fear filled the air. When the ships arrived, Perry sent a message to the shogun. It was a bold message. He demanded to meet with Japanese officials. He warned that if they refused, his ships would use force. The shogun and his advisors were shocked. For centuries, they had controlled who came to Japan. Now, this foreigner was making demands. What should they do? The shogun's court was divided. Some officials believed they should fight. They argued that Japan had always defended itself. Letting foreigners in would bring danger. Others, however, saw things differently. They knew Japan's weapons were old. The black ships had cannons that could destroy entire cities. Fighting would only lead to disaster. The shogun decided to allow Perry to stay for a short time, but he would not agree to trade just yet. Perry was not satisfied. He left, but he promised to return. The months that followed were tense. The Japanese people prepared for the worst. Soldiers trained. Forts were strengthened. Farmers gave extra rice to feed the troops. Everyone waited. Then, in 1854, the black ships returned. This time, there were more of them. They anchored close to the shore, their cannons pointed at the land. The message was clear. Perry would not leave without an answer. The shogun's advisors knew they had to act. After long discussions, they agreed to meet with Perry. They did so reluctantly, their pride wounded. But they also knew that refusing could bring war. The meeting took place in a grand tent on the shore. Perry arrived in full uniform, his officers following behind. The Japanese officials wore traditional robes and bowed deeply. The two sides were polite, but the tension was thick. The air felt heavy, as if the future of Japan rested on every word spoken. Perry presented gifts to impress the Japanese. He brought a small steam train, a telegraph machine, and American goods like whiskey and cloth. The Japanese were curious but cautious. They studied the gifts carefully, trying to understand the foreign technology. At the same time, they gave Perry gifts of their own, including fine silks and lacquerware. It was a show of respect, but also a reminder of Japan's traditions. Finally, after days of talks, the shogun's advisors agreed to sign a treaty. It was called the Treaty of Kanagawa. The treaty allowed American ships to stop at 2 Japanese ports. It also promised help for shipwrecked sailors. But it was more than just a treaty. It was the first crack in Japan's closed door. The signing of the treaty caused mixed feelings. Some Japanese felt ashamed. They believed the shogunate had been weak, giving in to foreign pressure. Others, however, saw it as a necessary step. They understood that the world was changing. Japan could not remain isolated forever. After Perry left, more foreign ships came. Britain, Russia, and other nations wanted their own treaties. Each new agreement gave foreigners more access to Japan. The shogunate struggled to control the situation. For the first time in centuries, Japan felt vulnerable. Life in Japan began to change. Foreign goods and ideas entered the country. People saw new clothes, tools, and machines. Western books were translated into Japanese. Some people were excited by these changes. They wanted to learn more about the outside world. Others, however, felt uneasy. They worried that Japan's culture and traditions were at risk. The arrival of the black ships also caused political unrest. Many people blamed the shogunate for allowing foreigners in. Protests and rebellions broke out in different parts of the country. Some groups wanted to restore power to the emperor, who had been a figurehead for centuries. They believed the emperor could unite Japan and protect it from foreign influence. These tensions eventually led to the end of the Tokugawa shogunate. In 1868, a young emperor named Meiji took the throne. He promised to modernize Japan while preserving its traditions. Under his rule, Japan entered a new era, full of challenges and opportunities. Looking back, the arrival of the black ships was a turning point. It forced Japan to face the outside world after centuries of isolation. The people were scared, but they were also resilient. They found ways to adapt, without losing their identity. Imagine standing on the shore, watching the black ships arrive. The smoke rises into the sky, and the waves crash against their dark hulls. The sight is both terrifying and fascinating. You feel the weight of the moment, knowing that life will never be the same. The black ships brought gifts and threats, but they also brought a choice. Japan could stay in the past, or it could step into the future. The people chose to face the challenge, and in doing so, they began a journey that would transform their nation forever. Chapter 5. The Meiji Miracle. The year was 1868. Japan was changing. After centuries of rule by the shogunate, power returned to the emperor. The new ruler, Emperor Meiji, was just 16 years old. His name, Meiji, meant enlightened rule. The people hoped his reign would bring light to a country facing darkness. They were ready for something new. The world outside Japan was moving fast. Countries like Britain and the United States had factories, railways, and steamships. Japan, however, was still using wooden tools and traveling by foot or horse. The leaders of Japan knew they had to catch up or risk being left behind. A decision was made. Japan would modernize. But how? The country had strong traditions. Many people were afraid that modernization would destroy their way of life. Others believed it was the only way forward. The debate was fierce, but the leaders agreed. Japan had no choice but to change. One of the first steps was education. Schools were built across the country. Boys, and for the first time, girls, learned to read, write, and study science. The government sent young men abroad to learn from other countries. These students returned with new ideas and skills. They became the builders of Japan's future. The samurai, once the proud warriors of Japan, faced an uncertain future. Their swords were no longer needed. New weapons, like guns and cannons, had changed the way wars were fought. Many samurai struggled to find their place in this new society. Some became teachers, soldiers, or business leaders. Others resisted, clinging to the old ways. But the time of the samurai was ending. Factories began to rise in the cities. Smoke from their chimneys filled the air. Workers, many of them young, operated machines that wove fabric, made tools, and produced goods for trade. The sound of hammers and engines echoed through the streets. Japan was becoming an industrial nation. The government also built railways. Trains connected cities that had once been days apart by foot. People marveled at the speed of these iron machines. A journey that had taken weeks now took only hours. The first railway between Tokyo and Yokohama opened in 1872. Crowds gathered to watch the trains, their eyes wide with wonder. The changes were not easy. Farmers, who made up most of the population, found life hard. Taxes were high, and they had to sell more rice to pay them. Many moved to the cities, looking for work in factories. The cities grew quickly, but they were crowded and dirty. Life in the city was exciting, but it was also tough. Despite these struggles, there was a sense of hope. People believed they were building a better future. Artists painted scenes of trains, factories, and bustling markets. Writers told stories of progress and dreams. Even traditional arts, like kabuki theater and tea ceremonies, found ways to adapt to the modern age. The government continued to learn from other countries. Experts from the West were invited to Japan to teach about technology, medicine, and law. Japanese architects studied Western styles and built grand buildings. But they also combined these ideas with traditional Japanese designs. The result was something unique, a blend of old and new. Japan's leaders also wanted a strong military. They studied the armies of Europe and created a modern force. The new army wore Western-style uniforms and carried modern weapons. Japan even built its own navy, with ships made of steel. The leaders hoped this military power would protect Japan from foreign threats. In 1889, Japan adopted a new constitution. It was inspired by Western ideas of government, but it was still uniquely Japanese. The emperor remained a symbol of unity, but elected leaders began to play a bigger role. This was a big step toward democracy. The Meiji era was also a time of invention. Engineers built Japan's first telegraph lines, which allowed people to send messages over long distances. Soon, electricity lit up the cities. Factories became more efficient, and homes became brighter. Life was changing faster than anyone had imagined. But not everyone was happy. Some people missed the old ways. They felt life had become too fast, too different. Others were frustrated by the growing gap between the rich and the poor. The new opportunities were exciting, but they were not shared equally. In the countryside, farmers still worked long days in the fields. They watched as the cities grew richer and wondered when their lives would improve. Many felt left behind. Their struggle was a reminder that modernization came at a cost. By the end of the Meiji era in 1912, Japan had transformed itself. The country was no longer isolated or outdated. It had modern factories, railways, and a strong military. Its people were educated and ready to face the world. Japan had joined the ranks of modern nations. But the journey was not over. The changes of the Meiji era brought both opportunities and challenges. Japan was growing stronger, but it also faced new questions. How could it balance tradition and progress? How could it ensure that everyone shared in its success? These questions would shape the next chapter of Japan's story. As you think about the Meiji era, imagine the excitement of that time. Picture a young boy watching a train for the first time, his face filled with wonder. Imagine a farmer planting rice, dreaming of a better future for his children. Think of the samurai, saying goodbye to their swords but finding new ways to serve their country. Each of them was part of a miracle of change, growth, and hope. The Meiji era was not perfect. It was a time of struggle and sacrifice. But it was also a time of vision and courage. The people of Japan dared to dream of a better future, and step by step, they made that dream a reality. Before we begin Chapter 6, a quick note for our listeners. You're currently listening to this audiobook on WooEnglish. Remember, this content is specially made for WooEnglish listeners only. If you're hearing it on any other channel, it may be a violation of WooEnglish's rights. Please ensure you're tuned into the right source to fully enjoy and respect this audiobook journey. Now, let's continue the story. Chapter 6: A Nation at War. The 20th century began with hope for Japan. The country had grown strong during the Meiji era. Factories produced steel, ships, and modern goods. Schools taught science, technology, and new ideas. Railways connected cities. Japan was no longer isolated. It was a nation ready to take its place in the world. But strength brought new ambitions. Japan wanted more land, more resources, and more power. Its leaders looked beyond the islands. They wanted to expand. To do this, they needed a strong military. In 1904, Japan went to war with Russia. The two countries fought over control of land in Asia. This was called the Russo-Japanese War. Japan surprised the world. Its navy defeated the Russian fleet, and its army won important battles. For the first time, an Asian country had defeated a European power. The victory brought pride and respect. Japan felt unstoppable. The years that followed were busy. Japan grew richer and stronger. It took control of Korea and parts of China. Its factories worked day and night to support the growing military. The people believed in their country's success. They felt united, proud, and confident. But with power came new challenges. In the 1930s, Japan faced hard times. The economy struggled. Many people were poor. Some were hungry. The government promised solutions, but they weren't easy. Leaders turned to the military for answers. They believed more land would solve Japan's problems. They began to plan for war. Japan invaded China in 1937. The war was brutal. Cities were destroyed. People suffered. Yet, the Japanese government told its people the war was necessary. They said it was for Japan's future. Many believed them. Soldiers fought bravely, but the cost of war grew higher every day. As World War II began in Europe, Japan made a bold decision. It joined forces with Germany and Italy. Together, they became the Axis powers. Japan hoped this alliance would make it stronger. It aimed to control Asia and the Pacific. The leaders believed Japan could not lose. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor. Bombs fell on the American naval base in Hawaii. Ships burned, and thousands of people were killed. The attack was sudden and shocking. The next day, the U.S. declared war on Japan. The conflict had become global. At first, Japan seemed unstoppable. Its navy and army took control of many islands in the Pacific. It moved quickly, winning battle after battle. The people back home cheered. Newspapers wrote stories of victory. But these victories came with a price. Resources were running out, soldiers were tired, and Japan's enemies were growing stronger. By 1944, the war had turned. The United States and its allies fought back hard. They used new weapons and strategies. Japanese cities were bombed. Factories and homes were destroyed. Supplies became scarce. The people began to feel the weight of war. Food was rationed. Families waited anxiously for news of loved ones on the front lines. One of the darkest moments came in 1945. On August 6th, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The explosion was devastating. Thousands of people died instantly. Many more suffered from injuries and radiation. Just 3 days later, another bomb fell on Nagasaki. The destruction was unimaginable. The people of Japan were in shock. The country was broken. On August 15th, Emperor Hirohito spoke to the nation. His voice was calm but heavy with sadness. He told the people that Japan would surrender. The war was over. For the first time, Japan had lost. The pride and confidence of the past had vanished. Cities lay in ruins. Millions of lives had been lost. The people faced an uncertain future. How would they rebuild? How would they move forward? Despite the pain, the Japanese people showed resilience. They began to clean up the rubble and rebuild their homes. They worked together, helping neighbors and strangers alike. Slowly, hope returned. But the memory of the war stayed with them. It was a reminder of the cost of ambition and the importance of peace. The war had left scars on the world, but it also taught valuable lessons. Japan learned the danger of unchecked power. It learned that strength must be balanced with responsibility. These lessons would guide the nation in the years to come. Imagine the streets of Hiroshima after the bomb. Smoke rises into the air. The city is silent, except for the cries of the wounded. But even in this darkness, there is courage. People help each other, sharing what little they have. It is a moment of both sorrow and strength. The story of Japan during the war is one of extremes, great victories and devastating defeats. It is a story of ambition, pride, and the high cost of war. But it is also a story of survival. The people of Japan faced their darkest days with courage, and from the ashes they began to rebuild. As you think about this time in history, remember the choices that led to war. Remember the emotions, the pride, the fear, the hope, and the sorrow. And most of all, remember the strength of the human spirit. Even in the worst of times, it can find a way to endure. Chapter 7. Rising from the Ashes. In 1945, the war was over, but Japan was in ruins. Cities lay in ashes. Factories were destroyed. Millions of people had lost their homes. Hunger and sadness filled the air. The country faced its darkest hour. Yet even in the shadows, there was a spark of hope. The people of Japan were tired of war. They wanted peace. They wanted to rebuild. Families gathered together, sharing food and warmth. Neighbors helped each other even when they had little to give. The spirit of unity grew stronger. Slowly, step by step, Japan began to rise. The first challenge was survival. Food was scarce. Many relied on rice, sweet potatoes, and whatever they could find. The winters were cold and homes were damaged or gone. People worked hard to rebuild their houses. They used scrap wood, bricks, and anything that could provide shelter. It was not easy, but they refused to give up. Foreign soldiers arrived, led by the United States. They were part of an occupation meant to help rebuild Japan. At first, many Japanese felt uneasy. What would happen to their country? But soon, it became clear that change was coming. The goal was to create a peaceful and democratic Japan. New laws were written. The emperor, once seen as a god, now became a symbol of unity. Power was given to the people. Elections were held, and women were allowed to vote for the first time. Schools changed too. They began teaching ideas of peace, equality, and cooperation. These changes gave people a sense of hope for the future. The economy was another challenge. Factories had been destroyed, jobs were hard to find, but the Japanese people were determined. Workers cleaned out factories and repaired machines. Farmers planted new crops. Businesses reopened one by one. Everyone worked together to rebuild the nation's strength. The government also had a plan. They focused on rebuilding industries like steel, textiles, and shipbuilding. At first, the progress was slow, but soon Japan's economy began to grow. Exports increased, and foreign countries started buying Japanese goods. The hard work was paying off. In the 1950s, something amazing happened. Japan entered a period of rapid growth. This was called the economic miracle. Factories became busier than ever. New products like cars, cameras, and radios were made in Japan. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Panasonic became world famous. The Japanese people took pride in their achievements. One key to this success was the Japanese spirit of teamwork. Workers and companies worked closely together. People believed in doing their best, no matter the task. They focused on quality and innovation. This mindset helped Japan compete on the global stage. The recovery was not just about factories and products. It was also about rebuilding communities and culture. Streets were cleaned, parks were built, and schools reopened. Festivals returned, bringing joy and color to the towns and cities. Traditional arts like tea ceremonies, calligraphy, and kabuki theater found new life. Japan honored its past while looking to the future. Life began to improve. Families moved into new homes. Children played in the streets again. Trains ran on time, and shops were filled with goods. People felt hopeful. They had faced hardship, but they had overcome it together. In 1964, the world saw how far Japan had come. The Olympics were held in Tokyo. It was a moment of pride for the entire country. The Games showed the world a new Japan, modern, peaceful, and full of energy. Skyscrapers rose above the city, and the newly built bullet train sped across the land. The future had arrived. But the journey was not without challenges. Natural disasters like earthquakes and typhoons tested the nation's strength. Each time, the people came together to rebuild. They showed resilience and unity. These hardships reminded them of what they had already overcome. As Japan grew stronger, it also became a leader in technology. Computers, robotics, and electronics became a major part of the economy. Japanese scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to innovate. Their creations shaped the world and brought new opportunities to Japan. The memory of the war never disappeared. Monuments and museums were built to honor those who had suffered. Schools taught children about the past, ensuring they understood the importance of peace. The people of Japan carried these lessons forward, determined never to repeat the mistakes of history. Imagine walking through Tokyo in the 1970s. The city is alive with energy. Neon lights shine brightly, and people fill the streets. Trains rush by, carrying workers and students. Markets are busy, selling food, clothes, and electronics. The air is filled with the sounds of a nation that has risen from the ashes. The story of Japan's recovery is one of hope, hard work, and unity. It is a reminder that even in the darkest times, people can find a way forward. The Japanese people faced unimaginable challenges, but they never lost their determination. They rebuilt their country with their hands, their hearts, and their dreams. Today, Japan stands as a symbol of resilience. Its cities are vibrant. Its culture is rich, and its people are strong. The journey from ruin to recovery is an inspiration to the world. It shows that with courage and teamwork, anything is possible. Chapter 8. The Economic Boom. After the war, Japan faced a difficult road. Cities were destroyed and factories were in ruins. But by the 1950s, things began to change. Slowly, then suddenly, Japan started to grow. What came next was amazing. It was called the economic boom, and it transformed the country. Factories came back to life. Workers repaired machines and built new ones. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Panasonic started making cars, radios, and televisions. The world began to notice. Japanese products were known for their quality. They were reliable, affordable, and modern. Orders from other countries poured in. One reason for this success was teamwork. In Japan, people worked together. Companies cared for their workers, and workers were loyal to their companies. They shared a common goal: rebuilding Japan. Every job, big or small, was done with care. This spirit of cooperation made a big difference. Another reason was education. After the war, schools focused on science and technology. Young people studied hard. They learned new skills and invented new ideas. These young minds became the engineers and scientists of the future. They helped Japan create the technology that changed the world. In the cities, factories hummed with activity. Workers started early in the morning and stayed late into the night. They worked long hours, but they were proud of what they made. Each product, from a tiny transistor to a powerful car engine, was a symbol of Japan's recovery. People believed they were building something bigger than themselves. The government also played a role. It supported businesses with loans and advice. It built roads, bridges, and ports to connect the country. Leaders made plans to grow industries like steel, textiles, and electronics. These efforts created jobs and made the economy stronger. The people of Japan made sacrifices during this time. Families saved money instead of spending it. Many lived in small homes and used what they had carefully. They worked hard so their children could have better lives. The dream of a brighter future kept them going. By the 1960s, the world could see the results. Japan's economy was growing faster than anyone had expected. Factories produced cars, cameras, and appliances for the global market. Japan became a leader in electronics. Companies introduced groundbreaking products like color TVs, calculators, and early computers. These inventions amazed people around the world. The cities were alive with energy. Tokyo, Osaka, and Nagoya became centers of business and innovation. Neon lights lit up the streets at night. Trains, including the famous Shinkansen or bullet train, sped across the country. The first bullet train started in 1964, connecting Tokyo and Osaka. It was fast, efficient, and a symbol of Japan's progress. That same year, Japan hosted the Olympic Games in Tokyo. The world watched as athletes from all nations came together. For Japan, it was more than just a sporting event. It was a chance to show the world how far it had come. Skyscrapers stood tall, and the streets were clean and modern. It was a moment of pride for the entire country. But the boom wasn't just about factories and cities. It was also about people. Behind every invention, every train, and every car was a person with a dream. Workers, engineers, and inventors all played a role. Their hard work and creativity made the boom possible. One of these inventors was Akio Morita, the co-founder of Sony. He believed in taking risks. In 1957, Sony introduced the first pocket-sized transistor radio. It was small, portable, and a huge success. Later, Sony created the Walkman, a device that let people listen to music anywhere. These products changed how people lived and entertained themselves. Another key figure was Kiichiro Toyota, the founder of Toyota. His company started making cars after the war. Toyota focused on building reliable vehicles. By the 1970s, Toyota cars were sold all over the world. They became symbols of Japanese quality and innovation. At the heart of the boom was the Japanese people. Farmers, factory workers, teachers, and shopkeepers all contributed. They believed in hard work, and they believed in their country. Their efforts built the foundation for Japan's success. By the 1970s, Japan had become one of the world's largest economies. Its products could be found in homes, offices, and stores around the globe. People marveled at how quickly the country had risen from the ashes. Japan had transformed itself into a modern industrial nation. But the success of the boom brought challenges too. Cities became crowded. The air and rivers were polluted by factories. Workers faced stress from long hours. People began to ask questions. Could the boom last forever? Was there a cost to all this progress? Despite these concerns, the achievements of this time were remarkable. Japan showed the world what determination and teamwork could accomplish. It became an example of how a nation can rise, even after great hardship. Imagine walking through a bustling street in Tokyo during the boom. Neon signs flash above you, advertising new gadgets and cars. You hear the hum of factories in the distance and the chatter of people rushing to work. The air is filled with energy and possibility. It feels like anything is possible. The economic boom was a golden age for Japan. It was a time of hard work, creativity, and pride. Factories hummed, cities shone, and dreams came true. The people of Japan built a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for their children and the generations to come. Their story is an inspiration to the world. Chapter 9. Traditions in a Modern World. As Japan grew into a modern nation, its cities changed. Tall buildings, bright lights, and busy streets became common sights. Trains raced through the countryside, and factories worked day and night. Life moved quickly, but something special remained. Japan's traditions stayed alive, even in this fast-changing world. One of these traditions is the tea ceremony, or chanoyu. It is more than just drinking tea. It is an art, a way to find peace in a busy life. Imagine stepping into a small, quiet room. The floor is covered with tatami mats. A scroll hangs on the wall, and a simple flower sits in a vase. The host moves slowly and carefully, preparing the tea. Every movement has meaning. Guests sip the tea, feeling calm and connected to the moment. The tea ceremony has been practiced for centuries. It started in the 15th century when a man named Sen no Rikyu shaped it into what it is today. He believed in simplicity and harmony. Even in modern Japan, people still study and perform this beautiful tradition. It reminds them to slow down and appreciate life. Another tradition that survives is the kimono. This traditional clothing is made from silk and is often colorful and detailed. Each kimono is a work of art, with patterns inspired by nature, cherry blossoms, waves, or autumn leaves. Wearing a kimono takes skill. It must be tied with an obi, a wide sash, and each layer must be arranged just right. In the past, kimonos were worn every day. Now they are mostly worn on special occasions, like weddings, festivals, or coming-of-age ceremonies. Even though most people wear modern clothes like jeans and shirts, the kimono is still a symbol of Japanese culture. It connects the present to the past. Festivals, or matsuri, are another way Japan keeps its traditions alive. These events bring communities together to celebrate, pray, or give thanks. Each region has its own unique festivals. Some are small and quiet, while others are loud and colorful. One famous festival is the Gion Matsuri in Kyoto. It takes place in July and lasts for a whole month. The streets are filled with giant floats, music, and dancing. People wear yukata, a light summer kimono, and enjoy food from street stalls. Lanterns light up the night, creating a magical atmosphere. Another well-known festival is the Awa Odori, or the Dance Festival. Held in Tokushima, it is a celebration of movement and joy. Dancers wear traditional costumes and move to the sound of drums, flutes, and bells. The rhythm is fast, and the energy is high. People watching cannot help but smile and clap along. Even in big cities like Tokyo, traditions remain. Temples and shrines stand among the skyscrapers. People visit these sacred places to pray, make wishes, or celebrate holidays. During New Year, families go to a shrine for Hatsumode, their first visit of the year. They pray for health and happiness, and the sound of bells fills the air. Food is another way Japan holds on to its traditions. Dishes like sushi, tempura, and miso soup are enjoyed around the world, but they are deeply rooted in Japanese culture. Meals are often served with care, presented like pieces of art. Seasonal ingredients are important. Spring brings fresh bamboo shoots. Summer offers sweet watermelon. Autumn is known for mushrooms. And winter means warm, hot pots. One special dish is mochi, a sticky rice cake. It is made by pounding cooked rice with a heavy mallet. This process, called mochitsuki, is often done during the new year. Families and neighbors gather to help, turning it into a fun and meaningful event. The soft, chewy mochi is then eaten as a symbol of good fortune. Art also connects modern Japan to its past. Traditional crafts like pottery, calligraphy, and papermaking are still practiced today. For example, origami, the art of folding paper, remains popular with children and adults alike. With just a few folds, a simple square of paper can become a crane, a frog, or a flower. Even technology has found ways to honor tradition. For example, robots have been built to perform tea ceremonies or play traditional instruments like the koto. Modern artists combine ancient techniques with new materials to create fresh designs. This blend of old and new shows how Japan values both its history and its future. The seasons also play a big role in Japanese traditions. Spring is celebrated with hanami, or cherry blossom viewing. Families and friends gather under blooming trees to eat, drink, and enjoy the beauty of the flowers. Autumn brings momiji-gari, or hunting for colorful leaves. These simple activities remind people of the natural beauty around them. In a world that changes so quickly, why do these traditions survive? Perhaps it is because they bring balance. Life in modern Japan can be busy and stressful, but traditions like tea ceremonies, festivals, and kimono remind people to pause. They connect them to nature, to each other, and to the past. Imagine walking through a park in spring. Pink cherry blossoms fill the trees, their petals falling like snow. Families sit on blankets, laughing and sharing food. A child runs to catch a falling petal. In that moment, time feels slower. The past and present come together. Japan's traditions are more than old customs. They are a way of life, a way to stay grounded in a fast-moving world. They remind people of who they are and where they come from. Even as Japan grows and changes, its traditions live on, inspiring both its people and the world. Chapter 10. Nature's Trials. Japan is a beautiful country. It has mountains, forests, rivers, and the sea. But nature is not always gentle. Japan faces many natural disasters. Earthquakes shake the ground. Tsunamis bring powerful waves. Typhoons roar with strong winds, and heavy rain. These trials are part of life in Japan. Earthquakes are common in Japan. The country sits on the Ring of Fire, a place where the Earth's plates meet. These plates move, causing the ground to shake. Some earthquakes are small and barely felt. Others are strong and destructive. One of the most powerful earthquakes happened in 2011. It was called the Great East Japan Earthquake. It struck on March 11th, shaking the land and causing buildings to sway. People ran outside, their hearts racing. But the earthquake was just the beginning. A tsunami followed. The waves were huge, as high as 10 meters in some places. They crashed into towns along the coast, destroying everything in their path. Houses, cars, and boats were swept away. People climbed to rooftops and hills, searching for safety. It was a moment of fear and sorrow. After the tsunami, another danger appeared. The Fukushima nuclear power plant was damaged. Radiation leaked into the air and water. People living nearby had to leave their homes. They did not know when they could return. It was a time of uncertainty. Despite the disaster, the people of Japan showed incredible strength. Rescue workers searched through the rubble, looking for survivors. Volunteers brought food, water, and blankets to those in need. Strangers helped each other, sharing what little they had. The spirit of unity shone brightly. Typhoons are another challenge. These powerful storms bring strong winds and heavy rain. They can cause flooding and landslides. In 2019, Typhoon Hagibis struck Japan. Rivers overflowed and homes were flooded. Roads and railways were damaged. Yet, even in the face of destruction, people worked together. Communities cleaned up the debris. Families supported one another. In the countryside, farmers face the trials of nature every year. Crops can be destroyed by storms or droughts. Yet, the farmers do not give up. They replant their fields and rebuild their lives. Their resilience is an inspiration. Over the years, Japan has learned how to prepare for disasters. Buildings are designed to withstand earthquakes. Early warning systems alert people when danger is near. Schools teach children what to do during an emergency. Drills are held regularly, so everyone knows how to stay safe. Even with these preparations, disasters can still bring loss. But the Japanese people find ways to remember and rebuild. Memorials are built to honor those who were lost. Ceremonies are held to pray for peace and protection. These acts of remembrance bring comfort and hope. Imagine standing by the sea after a tsunami. The land is quiet, covered in debris. A lone tree stands, its branches bare but strong. This tree becomes a symbol of hope. It reminds people that life can continue even after great loss. Japan's connection to nature is deep. The people respect its power and beauty. They celebrate the seasons with festivals and traditions, but they also understand the risks. This balance of respect and caution is part of their way of life. Technology plays a role in coping with disasters. Scientists study earthquakes and weather patterns. They develop tools to predict and respond to dangers. These advances save lives and reduce damage. But technology alone is not enough. The strength and unity of the people are just as important. After disasters, stories of kindness emerge. A shop owner gives food to hungry families. A stranger offers shelter to someone who has lost their home. These acts of compassion show the heart of Japan. They remind us that even in the hardest times, people can find light. Disasters leave scars, but they also bring lessons. The people of Japan learn from each experience. They build stronger homes and better systems. They prepare for the future, knowing that nature will test them again. The Great East. Japan earthquake was a turning point. It taught the world about the power of nature and the resilience of the human spirit. Countries around the globe sent aid to Japan. This support showed that in times of disaster, the world can come together. Imagine a child planting a tree in a place where the land was once destroyed. She digs the soil carefully, placing the seedling in the ground. Her small hands press the earth around it. This act is simple, but it is full of hope. It is a promise for the future. Japan's trials with nature are a part of its story. They bring pain, but they also reveal strength. The people face each challenge with courage and unity. They rebuild their homes, their towns, and their lives. And they remember, honoring the past while looking toward the future. Nature is powerful, but so is the human spirit. The story of Japan shows that even in the face of great trials, people can rise, rebuild, and find hope again. Chapter 11. Innovators and Dreamers. After rebuilding from the war, Japan began to dream. It was a time for new ideas and bold creations. The country's spirit of innovation grew stronger. Japan's inventors and artists became known around the world for their creativity and skill. Their work shaped the future, bringing joy and inspiration to millions. One area where Japan shone was technology. In the 1970s and 1980s, Japanese companies like Sony, Panasonic, and Sharp became global leaders. They made products that changed how people lived. The Walkman, created by Sony, allowed people to listen to music anywhere. It was small, portable, and revolutionary. For the first time, music could be carried in your pocket. Another groundbreaking invention was the compact disc, or CD. This small, shiny disc could hold hours of music. It replaced vinyl records and cassette tapes. People were amazed by its clear sound and durability. CDs became the standard for music around the world. Japanese cars also became famous. Companies like Toyota, Honda, and Nissan built vehicles that were reliable, affordable, and fuel-efficient. These cars became popular not just in Japan, but in countries everywhere. Japan's focus on quality and innovation set a high standard for the automotive industry. One of the most exciting areas of invention was robotics. Japan became a leader in creating robots that could move, think, and even interact with people. Asimo, a robot made by Honda, was one of the most famous. It could walk, climb stairs, and respond to human commands. Watching Asimo move was like seeing the future come to life. But Japan's creativity was not just in machines. It was also in storytelling. In the 20th century, Japan became known for its unique style of animation, called anime. Anime is more than cartoons. It tells deep, emotional stories with stunning visuals. Shows like Astro Boy, Dragon Ball, and Sailor Moon became beloved around the world. Anime often explores big ideas like friendship, courage, and the meaning of life. It can make you laugh, cry, and think. Each story is brought to life by talented artists and writers. Their passion and imagination have made anime a global phenomenon. Japan is also the birthplace of manga, a type of comic book. Manga covers every topic you can think of: adventure, romance, history, and even cooking. People of all ages enjoy reading manga. It is a window into Japanese culture and creativity. Behind these inventions and stories are dreamers, people with big ideas and the courage to try something new. One of these dreamers was Osamu Tezuka, often called the god of manga. He created Astro Boy, a story about a robot boy with a human heart. Tezuka's work inspired generations of artists and helped shape the world of anime and manga. Another visionary was Akio Morita, the co-founder of Sony. He believed that technology could improve people's lives. Morita's team created the Walkman, the first portable music player. At first, some people doubted the idea. Who would want to carry music with them? But Morita believed in his vision. The Walkman became a worldwide success. In the world of cars, Soichiro Honda stood out. He started with a small workshop, making bicycles with motors. His company grew into one of the largest car manufacturers in the world. Honda's dream was to build vehicles that brought freedom and joy to people everywhere. The video game industry also grew in Japan. Companies like Nintendo and Sony created games that became part of everyday life. Characters like Mario, Link, and Pikachu became household names. Games like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda brought adventure and fun into homes around the world. Japan's inventors didn't stop there. They continued to create new things that changed how we live. The bullet train, or Shinkansen, was one of these creations. It was the fastest train in the world when it began in 1964. It connected cities quickly and smoothly, saving time and energy. Riding the Shinkansen felt like flying on the ground. Japanese engineers also developed smart devices and advanced electronics. From cameras to calculators, their inventions became part of daily life. These creations made tasks easier and opened new possibilities for people everywhere. Even with all this modern technology, Japanese inventors often found inspiration in tradition. For example, some robots are designed to perform tea ceremonies. Others are inspired by ancient myths or nature. This mix of old and new is one of the secrets of Japan's creativity. Japan's inventors and artists remind us of the power of imagination. They show that dreams can become reality. Their work inspires people not just in Japan, but all over the world. Imagine a young child sitting in front of a TV watching Astro Boy for the first time. The robot hero flies through the air, saving the day. The child's eyes light up with wonder. At that moment, a spark of inspiration is born. That child might grow up to be an artist, an inventor, or a storyteller. Japan's story is full of innovators and dreamers. Their creations have brought joy, comfort, and excitement to millions. From robots to anime, cars to video games, they have shaped the world we live in today. And they continue to dream of what comes next. What will the future bring? No one knows for sure. But in Japan, the spirit of innovation is alive and well. The next big idea could be just around the corner. For now, we can celebrate the incredible journey of Japan's inventors and dreamers. Their creativity inspires us all to imagine, explore, and believe in the power of dreams. Chapter 12. The Spirit of Japan. Japan is a land of contrasts. It is ancient and modern, quiet and busy, simple and complex. Over thousands of years, Japan has built a unique identity. It is a place where the past and future live side by side. What makes Japan special? Let's look back at the journey. Japan's history begins with its connection to nature. Mountains, rivers, and forests shaped the land and its people. They believed in kami, the spirits of nature. This deep respect for the natural world became part of their culture. Even today, Japan's gardens, temples, and shrines reflect this harmony with nature. The seasons are celebrated, from cherry blossoms in spring to red maple leaves in autumn. The people of Japan have always valued discipline and honor. The samurai followed a code called Bushido, the way of the warrior. It taught loyalty, courage, and respect. These values influenced not only warriors, but also farmers, craftsmen, and merchants. They became part of Japan's character, shaping how people live and work together. During the Edo period, Japan chose isolation. The country closed its doors to the world. This time of peace allowed culture to flourish. Art, poetry, and theater reached new heights. The quiet strength of this era still inspires. It reminds us that beauty and creativity can grow in stillness. Then came the Meiji Restoration. Japan opened to the world and began to modernize. Trains, factories, and new technologies appeared. The people faced great change, but they adapted. They worked hard to build a stronger nation. This spirit of resilience carried Japan forward. In the 20th century, Japan faced its darkest days. War brought destruction and pain. Cities were bombed and lives were lost. But even in this tragedy, the people found hope. After the war, they rebuilt their homes, their cities, and their lives. They worked together, showing the strength of their unity. The economic boom transformed Japan again. Factories hummed and innovation soared. Japan became a leader in technology, creating cars, electronics, and robots. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Nintendo brought Japan's ideas to the world. Yet, even in this rush of progress, the people held on to their traditions. Tea ceremonies, kimono, and festivals remained part of life. The balance of old and new made Japan unique. Japan's creativity shines in its art and storytelling. Anime and manga capture the world's imagination. They tell stories of heroes, dreams, and the beauty of life. Behind each story is a team of artists and writers who pour their hearts into their work. Their passion inspires people of all ages. Nature has also tested Japan. Earthquakes, tsunamis, and typhoons remind the people of the power of the earth. Yet, each time disaster strikes, the people rise again. They rebuild their homes and their spirits. They remember those they lost and find strength in each other. This resilience is the true spirit of Japan. As the world changes, Japan continues to dream. New technologies, art, and ideas come from this small island nation. But Japan also remembers its roots. It honors the lessons of its past. This balance of history and innovation, tradition and progress, is what makes Japan special. Imagine standing in a bamboo forest. The tall green stalks sway gently in the wind. The air is still, yet alive with energy. This is Japan, a place where quiet strength grows, a place where history whispers and the future calls. The spirit of Japan is not just in its buildings or inventions. It is in its people. It is in their kindness, their respect for one another, and their dedication. It is in their ability to find beauty in the smallest things. A teacup, a flower, a moment of silence. What makes Japan unique? Perhaps it is all these things, the past, the people, and the dreams of tomorrow. It is the way they come together to create something extraordinary. Japan's journey is not over. The people will continue to grow, create, and inspire. As you reflect on this story, remember the lessons of Japan. Remember its resilience, its beauty, and its unshakable spirit. Let it remind you of the strength within all of us. No matter the challenges, there is always hope. And with hope, anything is possible.